Shalom everybody, let's do the blessing. Baruch atah Yahuwah Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirat haomer hayom yom 46. Blessed are you, Yahuwah, King of the universe, who's commanded us to count the Omer on this day, day 46.
Shalom, beloveds of the King. Praise Abba Yahuwah as we continue to count down on these last few days, working towards the blessing of having to celebrate Shavuot, and what excitement there is in our spirits as we continue our countdown, but at the same time, as we continue to look at Yirmiyahu, and again tonight a very complicated chapter, a lot in this chapter, and once again we are going to have to look at this chapter through the eyes of what the Father is trying to reveal. What is He trying to say to us? What is He trying to reveal to us? Because this is, if we're going to read it through the natural, it's just a chapter about Moab. But who is Moab representing? Who are these Moabites representing? You know, when we think of the Moabites, who were they? Who is Moab? Where did the tribes of these Moabs come from? It came from the daughter of when Lot came out of Sodom, when he was in Sodom, and Lot came out, and then remember his wife looked back and she turned into a pillar of salt, and then they were told to go into the mountains, and instead they went into the city, and the next thing, it wasn't well then eventually they did go into the mountains, and then the daughters decided to sleep with Lot, and there was birthed the Moabites, and there was birthed the Ammonites, Ammon. And this is really the land of Jordan that we would know as Jordan today. And so this is going to be a word that is going to come as a destruction against the Moabites. And let us read chapter 48 concerning Moab. This is what Yahuwah of hosts, the allure of Israel, said. Woe to Nevo, for it is ravaged. Kerathaim is put to shame, captured. The high stronghold is put to shame and broken down. So there is this concerning Moab. He's saying that this has been put to shame. There is praise for Moab no longer in Heshbon. They have devised evil against her. Come, let us cut it off as a nation, O madman. You are also cut off. A sword goes after you. If we have a look at Isaiah, is it Isaiah or Ezekiel? Sorry, Ezekiel. Ezekiel 25, 8 to 11. It says, this is what the Master Yahuwah said, because Moab and Seir say, see, the house of Yehudah is like all the nations. Therefore, see, I'm opening the flank of Moab on the side of the cities, on the side of her cities, on its frontiers, the splendor of the land, Beth Yeshamoth, Baal Meon, and Kiriathaim, and I shall give it together with the Ammonites as a possession to the men of the east, so that the Ammonites are no more remembered amongst the nations. Also on Moab I execute judgment, and they shall know that I am Yahuwah. So here in Ezekiel we see as well this judgment that is coming here. And verse 3 says, listen, an outcry from Yaim, ravaging and great destruction. Moab shall be destroyed, her little ones cry out. So you see, just like the Father was going to execute judgment upon Mitzrayim, just like the Father has executed judgment upon his own people in the land of Israel, so now he's executing judgment upon Moab. For on the ascent to Luhith, they go up weeping bitterly. For in the descent of Horonaim, the enemies shall hear a cry of destruction. Flee, deliver your own lives, and be like a bush in the wilderness. Now we must understand something. You know, this Moab tonight, we need to understand that this Moab is going to be again a foreshadow of what is coming in terms of when the Father says, come out of Babylon, and when he is going to destroy Babylon. For because you have trusted in your works and your treasures, you shall be captured, and Chemosh shall go forth into exile, his priests and his heads together. So you see, this is the key of this chapter, where it says, because you have trusted in your works and your treasures, you shall be captured, and Chemosh shall go forth into exile, his priests and his heads together. So we must understand that there is a warning. We cannot put our trust and our faith in the works of our hands and our own riches and our treasures in the times that are ahead. And that is why the Father says, if he tells us to come out of Babylon, because Babylon is going to represent everything that is going to be the wealth that's going to be given and everything else that's going to go with it. And tonight we are going to look at this very important chapter of Joseph, and we're going to look at chapter 48 as well. Interesting how we're also going to look at chapter 47, 48 of Genesis, as we are busy with chapter 48 of, we're going to look at chapter 47 and chapter 48 of Genesis. And if we're going to look at this, we are going to understand that a lot of this is going to be the same. People in the days ahead are not going to be able to put their trust in their treasures and in the works of their hands, because it is all going to come to an end. And a ravager shall come into every city, no one escapes, and the valley shall perish, and the plain be destroyed, as Yahuwah has spoken. So when we look at this verse, we must understand that which Yahuwah has spoken up against the land of Babylon in the last days. And if we look at the chapters in chapter 18, when Father sends forth Yahushua, and he comes, and then we see in chapter 14 where we see another messenger followed saying, Babel is fallen, the great city, because she has made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her whoring. So we are going to understand that this is the same thing. We're going to have to paint a picture of what the Father is trying to show us here. And Moab, again, over here, is representing the nations that are going to stand up against Abba Yahuwah. Give wings to Moab, for she has to flee away, and her cities became a ruin, with no one to dwell in them. Cursed is he who is slack in doing the work of Yahuwah. Wow. So you see, cursed is he who is slack in doing the work of Yahuwah. So we need to be able to be about Abba Yahuwah's work. And cursed is he who withholds his sword from blood. So this is a scripture that I think is a little bit difficult to understand. The cursed is he who withholds his sword from blood. We do not want to be able to put up the sword for blood. But yet at the end of the day, what does he mean? Cursed is he who withholds his sword for blood. Moab has been as at ease from his youth, and he has settled on the dregs and has not been emptied from vessel to vessel. Nor has he gone into exile. Therefore, his favor has stayed in him, and his fragrance is unchanged. So you see, there will be those that will think that, look, you know what, this is for all these other nations, and this is for all these other places, but it's not going to come up against us. Exactly, just as Eretz Israel truly believed, Yehudah truly believed that they would not come under the Father's wrath, that they would not be judged by the Father and go into exile. Yet the Father brought the judgment. Why? Because they became like the nations. They wanted to serve other gods, and they wanted to serve other mighty ones, and they did not want to be able to conform and turn from their wicked ways and serve Abba Yahuwah. And therefore see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, when I shall send him tilters who shall tilt him over and empty his vessels and break the bottles. So understand something. Every mighty nation of this WHO organization, of this World Health Organization, that thinks that they are so mighty and that thinks that they are these superpowers, and all these nations that are superpowers and think that nothing and no one can take them out, including the USA, that think they are this superpower, mighty. They can continue in their abominations. They can continue with the bloodshed of their child trafficking and child sacrificing and abortions and everything that they have sent out into the nations. They are the whore of Babylon itself. And if you think that they can continue to do the wicked that they do, and they pride themselves as being a nation that is a nation under Yahuwah, well, that is a fallacy, and the destruction is going to come upon them. And this is what we must understand. The Father will save the remnant, but the Father is going to judge the nation, and the nation is not going to be spared. And Moab shall be ashamed because of Chemosh, as the house of Israel was ashamed at Beit El, their refuge. Now understand, what happened at Beit El? That was their refuge. Remember, when the house of Israel was split to the house of Jeroboam and the house of Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the house that was the southern kingdom. Jeroboam became Israel, and that became Judah. Jeroboam became the northern kingdom that was the 10 tribes that went north, and that was under the sovereign of Jeroboam. Jeroboam became king over them. But then Jeroboam did not want them to be able to come back and serve Yahuwah in the temple in Jerusalem. So he went and built another temple in Beit El. And so if we have a look at 1 Kings 12, let's go have a look at 1 Kings 12, just quickly to see what they did so that we can understand why the Father brought a judgment against Jeroboam. Jeroboam was appointed by the Father because the Father brought a split in the kingdom, because Rehoboam put up the temple taxes and he became greedy, and he listened to the advisors of the young people as opposed to listening to the older advisors. And so if we look at 1 Kings chapter 12 verses 28, and it says, so the sovereign took counsel and made 2 calves of gold and said to the people, is it too much for you to go up to Jerusalem? See your mighty ones, O Israel, which brought you up from the land of Mitzrayim. And he set up one in Beit El, and the other he put in Dan. And this matter became a sin, for the people went before the one as far as Dan. And he made the houses of the high places and made priests from all the sorts of people who were not from the sons of Levi. Because remember, at that time the Father had called the house of Levi. And this is why now Father is speaking here in Yirmiyahu And he's saying, and Moab shall be ashamed because of Chemosh, as the house of Israel was ashamed of Beit El, their refuge. They were ashamed because they built a golden calf in Beit El, and there they went to worship him by building a golden calf. How do you say, we are mighty and strong men for battle? Moab is ravaged, and her cities have been entered, and her chosen young men have gone down to the slaughter, declares the sovereign, whose name is Yahuwah of hosts. The calamity of Moab is near to come, and his affliction hurries fast. So we must understand that there is a calamity that's going to come near, and his affliction hurries fast. And so the Father is going to bring destruction on all the nations that will continue to oppose him, that will continue to stand against him, that will continue to lead his people astray. Lament for him, all you who are around him, and all you who know his name. Say, how the strong scepter has been broken, the staff of splendor. So you see, Moab was this great nation, yet at the end of the day, when the scepter, which is the scepter is given for authority, the scepter is given for the authority, and the staff is given for leadership. The scepter of authority was broken, the staff of leadership was destroyed, and they would no longer have that splendor, and they would no longer have that authority, they would no longer have that leadership. Come down from your esteem and sit in thirst, O inhabitants, daughter of Dibon, for the revenger of Moab shall come against you. He shall destroy your strongholds. So understand something. This is a word to say, these nations that want to raise up and glory in their esteem because they think they are so powerful, because they either have a powerful military, or because they pride themselves in thinking that they are a nation that is so mighty, with all the mighty, like you will take the mighty powers of this world, like Russia, and you take America, and you take China, and you take all these nations that become so mighty in their own eyes, and they glory in all that they achieve by their own hands and their own doing. They will all be ashamed. Stand by the way and watch, O inhabitants of Aroer. Ask him who flees and her who escapes. Say, what has been done? Moab has been put to shame, for it has been broken down. Howl and cry. Let it be heard in Arnon that Moab is ravaged, and judgment has come on the plain country, on Holon, and on Yatzah, and on Mophath, and on Dibon, and Nebo, and on Beit Deblathaim, and on Kirathaim, and on Beit Gamul, and on Beit Meon, and on Kirioth, and on Botzrah, and on all the cities of the land of Moab, far or near. The horn of Moab has been cut off, and his arm has been broken, declares Yahuwah. Now remember how it says in Daniel, the little horn that is going to raise up, that little horn that's going to raise up, that's going to want to rule all the nations, and this little horn is going to raise up, but the Father is going to break down this little horn. And that is why when we read through the book of Revelation, we see that Yahushua is going to come and break down the powers. He's going to come with the sword in his mouth, and he's going to fight against these nations that had stood up against him and killed the prophets and killed his people and come up against his people. He is going to take vengeance. Make him drunk, because he has made himself great against Yahuwah. Moab shall splash in his vomit, and he shall also be in mockery. Is this not what we see if we read through the book of Revelation and we understand what the Father is going to do against Babylon? So you see, this Moab is representative of a Babylon, future Babylon, and all the nations that are going to come under this Babylonian system. All these nations that are going to bow down to a Babylonian system. And it says, and was not Israel a mockery to you? Was he found among thieves? For whenever you speak of him, you shake your head. Now that's what we read, how they mocked Israel. We read that in Ezekiel 25. O inhabitants of Moab, leave the cities and dwell in the rock, and be like the dove making a nest in the sides of the cave's mouth. So isn't that interesting? That he says, flee. What did Yeshua say in Matthew chapter 24? You are to come out of the cities, flee out of the cities, and go to the mountains where you need to go and hide in the mountains. And so what is he saying? He's saying the inhabitants of Moab, leave the cities and dwell in the rock, and be like the dove making a nest in the sides of the cave's mouth. So you see how the dove, remember when Abba Yahuwah told Moshe to hide in the cleft of the rock, while his presence was going to go past him. So when we hide in the cleft of Abba Yahuwah's rock, nothing will harm us. If we are hiding in the cleft of the rock, he will cover us with the shadow of his wing. Just like the doves here in the entrance of the cave, he will hide us. So what is he saying? Come out of Babylon, come out of these cities that I'm going to judge, come out of these places that I'm going to judge, come into those places, come into the mountains, come into the caves where I will hide you in the cleft of the rock and keep you from the evil that is coming upon these nations. We have heard of the pride of Moab. He's very proud of his loftiness and arrogance and pride, and of the haughtiness of his heart. My goodness, if you read the scripture, does this not sound like the pride of the kings of this world that make all these things? And that is why in Psalm 2, what does the Father say? Kiss the Son, and he laughs. In Psalm 2, Father laughs. He laughs at the kings of the world that think that they are the ones who have the power and that they are the ones who reign and rule. But he laughs at them because at the end of the day, he's going to smite them and he's going to destroy them because of their pride and their arrogance. And if you look and see what these people are doing with their wealth and with their science, and led by all these demonic things, and how they are having to be able to deceive the people and what they think they're doing, when they can create human beings, and they are destroying the DNA and all these things that they're doing, and they are so proud of all that their hands are doing, which is all an abomination against the Father. I know his wrath, declares Yahuwah, and his boasting are untrue, and his deeds are false. Therefore, I wail for Moab, and I cry out for all Moab. I mourn for the men of Kir Heres. O vine of Sibmah, I weep for you with the weeping of Yazer. Your branches have passed over the sea. They have come to the sea of Yazer. The ravager has fallen on your summer fruit and your grape harvest. Joy and gladness have been taken away from the orchard and from the land of Moab, and I have made wine to cease from the winepress. No one treads with shouting. The shouting is no shouting. Now, if we have a look at that scripture, and we quickly look at Isaiah chapter 24, because we see what is going to be against the nations of the world in Isaiah chapter 24 from verse 3, and it says, and the earth is completely emptied and utterly plundered, for Yahuwah has spoken this word. The earth shall mourn and wither, the world shall languish and wither, the haughty people of the earth shall languish. You see, now he's speaking about a city, Moab. But this is representing the nations in the last days again. For the earth has been defiled under its inhabitants because they have transgressed the Torah, changed the law, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore, a curse shall consume the earth, and those who dwell in it be punished. Therefore, the inhabitants of the earth shall be burnt, and few men shall be left. The new wine shall fail, and the vine shall languish. All those glad in heart shall sigh. The joy of the tambourine shall cease, and the noise of those rejoice shall end, and the joy of the lyre shall cease. No more do they drink wine with a song. Strong drink is bitter to those who drink it. The deserted city shall be broken down. Every house shall be shut. No one enters. There is crying for wine in the streets. All joy shall be darkened, and the gladness of the earth shall be gone. The city is left in ruins, and the gate is stricken with destruction. So you see, this is exactly what is being spoken of here. No treads with shouting. The shouting is no shouting. And the wine has been taken away, and all the vineyards. So where they seek for this to give them comfort, where the people seek for wine and strong drink to give them comfort, it shall no longer be there to comfort them. From the outcry of Heshbon unto El-Ale, unto Yahatz, they shall raise their voice. From Tzor to Horonaim, like a 3-year-old heifer, for even the waters of Nimrim are dried up. And I shall make an end in Moab to him who offers in the high places and burns incense to his mighty ones, declares Yahuwah. So do you see? Do you think the Father's going to continue to have these people that are offering their incense to other gods and other mighty ones and keep exalting them, and they're making sacrifices, and they are trafficking more and more children for them to be able to offer worship to their God? No, it's not going to continue for long. And so my heart sounds for Moab like flutes, and my heart sounds for the men of Kiri-Heres like flutes. Therefore the wealth they made shall be gone. So you see, exactly like it says in the book of Revelation, where he's going to destroy the wealth, where he's going to destroy everything that is going to be from that very city of Babylon. He is going to be able to destroy it all. And this is what we must understand in what the Father's destruction that he's going to bring. And so if they're going to put their faith and their trust in their wealth, it's not going to stand. For every head is bald and every beard clipped, cuts on all the hands and sackcloth on the loins. So you see, the people will be stripped of everything. How has she been broken down? They shall wail. How has Moab turned her back with shame? So Moab shall be a mockery and a horror to all those about her. Remember, this is exactly what it says about Babylon, how they are going to look at Babylon and how they are going to wail because she's going to be destroyed, and she's going to be a city that is going to be, looked on with horror as the destruction is going to come upon it. For thus says Yahuwah, see, he soars like an eagle and shall spread his wings over Moab. Kirioth shall be captured and the stronghold ceased. And the heart of mighty men in Moab on that day shall be like the heart of a woman in labor. And Moab shall be destroyed as a people because he has made himself great against Yahuwah. So you see exactly what he said about Babylon, because they made themselves great against Yahuwah, and this is where they are going to be destroyed. And so Father speaks destruction against Moab. Fear and the pit and the snare are upon you. Fear and the pit and the snare are upon you, O inhabitants of Moab, declares Yahuwah. He who flees from the fear falls into the pit, and he who gets out of the pit is caught in the snare. For I am bringing upon Moab the year of their punishment, declares Yahuwah. So you see, if you stay in that place, if you stay in in Babylon at the time of Abba bringing the destruction upon, you want to go and put yourself into a pit, but the minute you come out of that pit, you will be destroyed. Those who fled stood powerless under the shadow of Heshbon, but a fire shall come out of Heshbon, and a flame from the midst of Sihon, and consume the brow of Moab, and the crown of the head of the sons of Uproar. Woe to you, O Moab! The people of Chemosh have perished, for your sons have been taken into exile, and your daughters into exile. So you see, there will be those that will be taken into exile, just like the sons of Judah were taken into exile into Babylon. But there was in the latter days, so this could be in the latter days, and if we look at the land of Moab right now, Jordan seems to be a land that is quite prosperous with the king of Jordan, because it says, but I shall turn back the captivity of Moab in the latter days, declares Yahuwah. Thus far is the judgment of Moab. So could this be in the latter days that we are in now, that we're seeing Moab as the king of Jordan running the land of Moab, that seems to be a prosperous nation, a nation that seems to be prospering. But we do not know, as if they turn against Eretz Israel for the destruction that will come upon them. So we praise Abba Yahuwah for this word, and again a very powerful, stern warning from Abba Yahuwah that is speaking again in Jeremiah chapter 48, as he speaks again against the nations of the world. May this be a warning for us again to understand the things that he speaks. So may Abba bless you all. May you all enjoy your evening. Shalom, shalom.